Okay, so I asked a question on Facebook of what kind of next video should be about, basically. And two of the comments I got were what were the tools I use for the things I make. And then the other was basically building an event kit for working on projects at events. So that's what we're going to talk about real quick. I gotta remember the camera is here. So, well, first let's just talk about the tools. While I have several tools, I actually find I don't use that many of them. I have ones I use on the regular, and then ones very occasionally. And it may just because of the projects I'm working on right now, or just how I've tuned my current process. So, um, first off, probably the big primary one is just one of these box cuttery X-Acto knives. It's got the removable thing. Since lately I've been cutting a lot of leather, it's really nice. Another thing is one side gets dull, you can flip it around, and then you have your sharp bit. I also like that it folds up on itself, and then it goes in kind of my Aventi kit. I do have a strap cutter. I don't use it as often because most of the things I'm cutting are bigger. So this really is just for straps and bits. And sometimes it's easier to use the big ruler because I can line things up on the mat and just do one long cut because you kind of have to be on when you're using one of these. This is not like one of the small, really expensive ones that you set in the middle and you spin the leather around and it makes long strips. That's a whole different story. I have my grandpa's ancient venerable hole punch, which unfortunately the spring has kind of worn out. So I need to take it to my blacksmithing friends and see if they can give it a little rehabbing. Or even if it can be rehabbed, mainly it just needs a new spring. Problem is it is set with a pin, so I don't know if it can be done or not. I may have to replace it. I hope not. This thing's older than I am. So, I do pretty on the regular use calipers. These help with marking a stitch line. So basically you set it to your edge. Kind of awkward holding up in the air, but you set it on the edge and then you just follow it down. And you can mark it. Mine's marked at a 1/4 inch. In fact, all my stuff for stitching is marked at a 1/4 inch. That way it's nice, it's even. I don't mess with saddle stitching. I just go back and forth. The other thing on stitching is while I do have stitching punches, I tend to use the hole punch just for speed and ease of use. I don't have the type of punches that I like. They were just that cheap, and they're not set to the spacing that I want. They're a little smaller. The big thing you have to remember though is when you're punching holes for stitching leather, if you use like an awl, which I do have a couple awls, like this little one, this pushes a space in the leather that the leather will heal from. This cuts a chunk out, so makes a difference. If you're putting a lot of stitches through the same hole, sometimes using the smaller one is the way to go. I think this one is a millimeter or two at the smallest. If it was a little smaller, it'd be great. I kind of want one of those line punches that does millimeter holes set at a 1/4 inch. So it's kind of here or there. If you're going for more historical stuff, nah, you've got a null. You're pushing holes, stitching, pushing more holes. That's the way it goes. Or you can sew in a machine if you got a machine. I do not have a machine. The other thing, I don't really stitch with anything but the artificial sinew. I could use thicker linen or something like that, but I found that just this is easy and it's what I'm used to. So I have a couple big cutting mats. I got my table. I got my long ruler, which is at a yard. I do have a second ruler. It's a little smaller, a little more manageable. This one's 3 feet by an inch, so makes things a little easier. I don't really have a lot of stuff I haul to events. Unless, it depends on the event we're talking about. Now, I am slowly working on a kind of a toolbox, kind of toolkit thing, where basically I have everything that I could work on a leather project while I'm there, and I want a couple other things similar to like the Mastermere toolbox, a couple, the small like anvil and things like that, but that is more for, I want to be able to do some copper and maybe silver work. Nothing that really requires a forge, just more of a, if there were a fire, I could, blanking. Basically, copper and things like that work hardened, so you have to heat them so they get soft again. So, depending on what you're making, though, you can usually get it done before that even happens. So for like day events, I will generally put everything together that I'm going to work on, and then literally while I'm at the event, it's just sewing, and it is small enough that it will fit in my bag. So, grab the bag. So, there we are. I made myself a new bag. This one's me. Made the way I want. Did, the leather has the look I want. The stitching has the look I want. Kind of took my, it's not super huge. So fitting things in here, space priorities. So in it, I have a little pseudo. Man, why can I not think right now? That long COVID mixed with ADHD sucks. Sucks a lot. The needle case. I haven't looked too much into their historical reality of these. I know there are some similar. Probably going to be working on more of a Sami style one, which is the ones that are made out of a bit of bone, and then the whole thing slides out the bottom, and then it's got a strip of leather with your needles and things like that. But that's being fancy, and I want some of the old style needles, some bone needles, and I'm not talking like nail biting needles. I'm talking actual sewing material kind of things. So, however, on this one I cheated, and it, besides being snug, which is nothing wrong with being snug. It means things don't come undone. I stuck a piece of PVC in the center. I built this around, instead of it being built around another piece of leather, I did this so it's durable. I drop it on the ground, somebody steps on it, it's not going to mess it up. Okay, so right now it does have a variety of needles in it. There's some leather needles, there is a nail binding needle, there's some regular sewing needles. I have a couple others. I did make a point of making it bigger or longer so it would hold some of my longer needles, because a lot of those other ones, they're not long enough. So this goes in there, snug it tight, and hang off the edge of the bag. So I have that. So what I'm going to be taking to Coronation, which is tomorrow, is I developed this Birka wallet inspired. It's not a replica or a recreation. It's just looked at the Birka wallets, went, how can I make something that looks close? Because I don't want it to look like everybody else's. And I don't think everybody else did that either, unless the same guy was making them, then he had a similar way of making things. Then you might have a look, but... So here's a ranty tangent. You go to events, and everybody's got that one thing based on the find, and for the most part, everybody looks alike. It's all the same thing. Everybody's got the Birka wallets with the weaving through it, and it's all the same stuff. Those are really pain in the ass to make. Sitting with my Knight Angus, and he was working on making one, and the turning inside out and everything else was just a pain. I think another thing is the differences in leather between then is now, and now makes a huge difference. I think so you tend to use the leather of the animals you eat on the regular, because that's the more prolific thing, right? So you got, Norse places, the cattle, a lot of times for milks, for cheeses, raising baby cows, excess. You didn't have a whole herds like we have now for everybody close. They might have had a couple. But you had sheep, goats, pigs. Those are more prolific. You get more leather. That leather is generally thinner, softer, has the fur on it, does not have the fur on it, just depending on how it goes. So I think that was the more common. Those leathers are smaller, more fabric-y, for a lack of a better term. I'm not going to say garment weight, because no. But it is what it is. You look at stuff, the things we have to survive are this one thing made out of this one thing, and then everybody copies it. Well, I look like everybody else. It's like with the bags. These should be as different as the person who's carrying it, because they may have made their handles different. This may have been fabric, it may have been leather, it may have been a mix of the two. You never know. So okay, so tangent off, back to the program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one of these out. What I have, and we're not blinded anymore. Okay, so I made a pattern. Has all my sizing, my holes, and then the pockets. The pockets are separate whereas in the historical find, they're part of and sewn on. They're a whole variety, and it's all turned out. So I'm like, why do that? So What this does is basically you're sewing on the pockets. Still folds up the same. Still comes over, has the little clasp kind of bit. So the historical one, it's got all, this is all edged on the side, and it's got the little things, and it's all fancy and stuff. Everybody's going to be a little different. There's a couple different pieces. Everybody argues about how they were together. Who knows? We got bits of one. So, but you have lots of other things you can kind of extrapolate on. It's like, okay, one dude might have done this. Another dude, man, just slapped two pieces together with, two pockets, and it hung off the side of his belt, or it folded it together and tied it off, went in his bag so all his change didn't go flying out. Stuff like that. Kids just had little pouches that they stuck in their shirt. So that's the plan is cut out the pieces. So I'll have one piece like this, 3 pieces like this, and then I will take the amount of thread I think I need, which for the most part I've kind of guessed out. And then I'm currently cutting it out of this leather, so to kind of match that. And then when it is done, I will give it to a friend who is visiting home from California and coming to the event to see everybody. So he's out in the Kingdom of the West, and we all love him very much. And him and his lovely husband are coming, so it's kind of a yay day. Now, for the event kit, I have this tool. It has centered in it, I have some thread spools, I have 2 big pockets, I have some bits for the thread bits, the sewing punches. It'll also hold a lighter to burn off the ends. I don't like burning the ends though. I weave them back through like they're supposed to be. Call me picky. It'll hold the X-Acto blade, space for pens, pencils. I do also have in here another pair of scissors that's bit in the pocket. In here I have a tape measure in case I really want to measure something out instead of eyeballing it. I do have this. This is not historical in any way, shape, or form. It's just a ratcheting kind of screw punch. Basically, it's a drill. I have a bag of bits. They're all of various sizes. You plug one on here. It can be out in the center, and basically you drill through. The one problem with this is the hole through the bit is not the same width all the way through. So the little bits you get tend to kind of tumble as they go through, and then it gets clogged. The other thing, because it's brass on brass, it leaves little shavings, like brass shavings, if you're doing too much. So it has its benefits and drawbacks. It doesn't, whereas the throat on this can't reach so far, this can. So it's portable. I can punch a hole right in the center that's 3 feet in if I really needed to. It will do some other materials, but not very well. So it just needs something durable to hold up against. So that's kind of what I use. I don't use a lot. If I wanted to, I could roll this thing up, stick it in my big bag, have something to work from at a longer event, or even a day event where I'm like, okay, I'm going completely from scratch. Problem with going from scratch is having a place to cut things out. So, I could cut with scissors using the, X-Acto and a ruler and a cutting board. So much nicer, so much faster. Each has its drawbacks. I could cut on a long bit, but I have to worry about bearing off, doing other things. So, excuse me. So that's kind of what it is. So I am going to do a video for tomorrow, wallet coordination. And that's the other thing I include in my tools is I got a little tripod. I have a little battery bit. These are all things that are, part of the tools of doing what I do. So, while there is fighting tomorrow, I am not fighting because it's all sword and buckler, and I don't even own a buckler. And it sounds like a slugfest, so I'm going to go socialize. And then video stuff and make a day of it. So we're kind of getting back into the season. You will see some more from me event-wise. So we have Coronation tomorrow, and then later on this month is Queen's Prize, which is over in Manhattan, which is my hometown. So I'm going home, entering in Queen's Prize, which is all arts and sciences. So that'll be fun. I have a bunch of project-define to enter. And then in May is Melees and Mayhem, which is current hometown area shire event. That's just fun fighting and socializing kind of thing. So we haven't been able to have ours the way we would want for a while. So the last one I didn't really get the video at all because it was combined Queen's Prize, Melees and Mayhem. So it was Queen's Mayhem. And I was doing the autocrat bit. So I'm doing the autocrat bit this year. However, there won't be as much to worry about. So I'm going to go do more and just do the thing. Plus we have a new site, so it's getting used to things and stuff. So it's kind of where things are at. Mr. Atwood's going with me tomorrow, so that'll be nice. We haven't got to go to an event together. Even though it's Easter weekend, we are taking the break for us. Pretty soon, the year starts to get kind of hectic. One of the younger Skraelings is graduating high school, and then there's only one left. Then we'll see the baby Skraeling while we're out there. So that's June, so we won't get to go to Lily's, which going and seeing my kid graduate versus potentially sweltering in the heat in, Northwest Missouri. And go up to the Pacific Northwest and watch my kid graduate. Who knows? Maybe we'll catch an event up there. That is something else I would like to do. I have stuff set up. I haven't put it in play yet because I don't know, it's a mental block or something. I did set up a Patreon for the Skraeling Saga. I just haven't put it out there yet. The goal would be any funds that go for that would be purely going, recording events, trying to go to different ones, and just kind of showcase new stuff. And then, projects. It's not a make-a-living thing out of. So, that's another thing is, Mr. Atwood and I are looking at how we want to change our life. Not in a bad way, in a good way. It's, do we want to keep living in an apartment or we want to go in and get a house? We get a house, that's kind of a time commitment. Do we want to stay here or do we not? Mr. Atwood really likes their job. I don't really care. They're my roots, other than where the other scralings are, I could be anywhere. So that's kind of where we're at. I get to see my Iowa Knight tomorrow and his lovely wife. We've known each other for many decades, but we don't get to see each other as often because they're up in Iowa, so that'll be fun. I'll get to see some of my Wichita friends. Oh, that's another event. It's coming up. Valor. It'll be in Wichita Memorial Weekend. So that's always a fun one. Probably the last event we will be able to hit before the graduations and all the other insanity ensues. Mr. Atwood's going to be going on a trip to Orlando while I am here. It's for work. It's not as exciting as it sounds. Well, yeah, for work. So, kind of what it is. I'll wrap that up here. I'll put the kit together, and then that's the other thing I'm looking at is maybe using this a little to raise a vintage fund, by putting together some kits people can get. They can make their thing themselves, or even, buy one that's already done, just to give away. I think little things that help make people's soft kit stuff more. So, sorry, I bounced it around a little. The table's not. So where we're at. A couple other things brewing, but I got to get them worked out first. So, other than that, hope everybody's having a good day, and talk to you later.